Hey there everyone, and welcome to Ants Reptile Colony, where today we're going to be talking about plants. Yes, plants, because they also deserve some love in this world, so stay tuned to find out how they react to their environment. Yes, plants are able to react to their environment, just not in the same way as you or me. The way they do this is mainly through hormones, and the three hormones that we're going to be looking at are auxins, Gibberellins, and Abscisic Acid. We're also going to be looking at the different types, or two different types of tropism, that is phototropism and geotropism. We're also going to briefly look at plant defense mechanisms, mechanical and chemical, and then how you can use these plant hormones as herbicides to remove weeds. So starting off with our first hormone, that is the auxins, and they are produced at the tips of growing stems and roots. So yes, at the very end, at the very tip of the root or the plant, also known as the apical meristems. You'll have apical buds and the apical meristems, as well as lateral meristems. Lateral meristems on the side, apical being at the top or the apex. But why are they only produced in the apical meristems and not in the lateral meristems? And that is because auxins' function, one of the main functions, is to promote apical dominance, which means that it causes the plant to grow tall and upwards while reducing kind of the lateral growth. So auxins inhibit the lateral growth, or the lateral growth of meristems, so that you'll find that the stems that are closest to the top are smaller than those at the bottom, giving that typical kind of Christmas tree or triangle shape. So in the same way, if you had to go and cut off the apical meristem or the apical bud, you are now removing those auxins, and therefore you are stopping the inhibition of the lateral growth. So now your plant will grow much wider into kind of like a shrub or a hedge. So a lot of people will purposefully cut off the apical meristem to form a hedge plant. Auxins are also responsible for growth regulation, which we'll get into soon when we start talking about the tropisms. The other functions also include mitosis, formation of adventitious roots in the cutting, so no tap roots, lots of little roots, as well as the development of flowers and fruits. The second hormone we're going to be looking at is Gibberellins or Gibberellins, and they are another hormone that's very important, as is also used by plants to respond to the environmental stimuli. Their main function is as a growth regulator, and they facilitate cell elongation. So all the cells that have been undergoing mitosis at the meristems are now going to be elongated by the Gibberellins, therefore adding length to the cells and adding length to the plant, either upwards or sideways. So auxins are in the meristems, where the cell division is acting at a high rate, causing the plant to grow, and Gibberellins act on the already divided cells, allowing them to grow longer. They also play major roles in initiating germination, dormancy and flowering, flower development, and leaf and fruit senescence. Senescence being aging, so when the leaves and fruits get too old, the Gibberellins play a role in initiating that. The last hormone is abscisic acid, and it also plays a role in growth and regulation in the plant, as it prevents the plant from growing. It's best known for the aging of the leaves and fruits and indicating when they need to fall off the plant. They're also known for plant dormancy and germination, so knowing if the plant needs to remain dormant or if it needs to hold back on germination. So knowing when is the best time to germinate or slow down the growth due to maybe a lack of resources is also key to the plant's survival. Keeping the seeds in a dormant state is also of utmost importance. Let's say there's a time of stress or low resources. That is when the abscisic acid comes into play. It's known as the stress hormone. So it's saying, nope, we're under stress. This is not a good time. Let's hold back a bit before we germinate. So knowing when to hold back is also quite key for this plant. The abscisic acid also controls that aging or senescence of the plant itself, with the leaves and the fruits. So those are the three hormones and their basic kind of functions. We then mentioned that we're going to get back to auxins a little bit when it comes to plant growth because of the different tropisms. And the two tropisms we're going to be looking at are phototropism, so reactions to light, and geotropism, which is reaction to gravity, not reaction, rather response So response to light and response to gravity. So I don't know if you've ever noticed maybe your plant at home in your pot or a plant outside tends to grow in a particular direction, like maybe towards the window or to the direction that it receives the most sun at during the day, and that is called being positively phototropic. So it's growing towards the light. Auxins are playing a role in here, as auxins in stems promote growth. So if the sun or light source is directly above the plant, the auxins are pretty evenly spread along the stem, and therefore the plant will grow straight up. But if the light is coming in at an angle, the auxins will then all concentrate or gather on the opposite side to the light, so on the shaded, so to speak, side of the plant, causing rapid growth on that side of the plant and not on the sun side, causing the plant to then bend in the direction of the sun. So it is positively phototropic because it grows directly towards the light. If something is growing directly away from the light, we say that it is negatively phototropic, such as roots. Roots are said to be negatively phototropic as they grow away from the light into the ground, because usually the ground doesn't produce any light, so we say negatively phototropic, growing down into the light, into the ground. This then links into geotropism. So if something is positively geotropic, we say that it grows in the same direction as gravity, in our case down, and if something's negatively geotropic, it will grow in the opposite direction to gravity, so up. So stems are negatively geotropic and roots are positively geotropic. Auxins in roots have the complete opposite effect that they have in stems. So if the root is growing straight or downwards like this, let's say, so gravity is acting on it exactly downwards, then the auxins are kind of all evenly spread or gathered at the tip, causing them to grow straight down. But when they are lying at a side, let's say like this, auxins will have a weight and they gather then on the bottom end of the root, which actually inhibits growth. So the auxins promote growth in stems and inhibit growth in roots. So that means that the top half of the root, which has less auxins in, will grow faster than this bottom half over here, this bottom part, causing the root to grow and bend downwards. Again, positively geotropic. So that's phototropism and geotropism, can be negative and positive for each, positive being in the same direction, negative being in the opposite direction to the stimuli. As humans, we probably wouldn't lose a fight to a plant, given that the plants can't actually move on their own. But when it comes to animals and maybe even early humans, that's not quite the case, because they had no tools, which we now use to pretty much render all plant defenses completely useless, so we can get through anything. There are two types of plant defenses. You have the physical or mechanical defenses, as well as the chemical defenses. Physical defenses are things like spikes, thorns, and spines. Think of roses, cactus, acacia trees, things like that, as well as having a thick bark. So bark or a waxy cuticle can also act as a physical or mechanical defense, which is a bit more on the obscure side, but that's all mechanical defenses. When we're getting along to chemical defenses, it sits more along the lines of poisons and kind of liquids. So a milky latex that comes out if you've cut a plant or broken a leaf off, which can be mildly toxic, as well as tannins. Tannins are often very bitter, so they make plants unpalatable, don't taste great pretty much for herbivores. Yeah, so the poisons or tannins will have that negative effect on herbivores or pathogens, making them kind of unpalatable or killing off the pathogens to begin with, preventing them from getting into the plant. And that's pretty much those two things done very briefly. Then we get on to how we could use hormones as herbicides or to control weeds. First, I think we need to clarify what a weed is. And a weed is any plant that is growing in an area that you don't want it to grow in because it is busy competing with the plants that you do want to grow in that area for resources. So any plant in theory can be a weed. Most herbicides are toxic to some degree, but others are using the hormones, which we will be talking about today. Getting to an example, let's say you are a farmer, you are growing some wheats and cereals, and they are all narrow-leaved plants, so they are the plants that you want to grow there. Any broad-leaved plants growing in between, they will be considered weeds. So what you can do is you can go and research which hormones or which auxin specifically targets broad-leaved plants. You can go and spray those auxins in between all your crops, which will not affect the crops at all, but any of those broad-leaf plants that are there will then get affected and die. If you're spraying auxins, it means that you are actually causing the plant to grow too fast and it's not able to take in enough resources to sustain that growth, therefore killing it. If you're doing Gibberellins, you are preventing growth, or even Abscisic Acid, preventing that growth and then causing the plants to die in that way. So you can use plant hormones as herbicides to control weeds, bearing in mind that different plants react differently to the different types of hormones. And then that is about it for that quick intro into plant responses to the environment and pretty much how they do it. If you found this content useful, please like and subscribe. If you think someone else might find it useful, send it to them, share it around. Remember, use herbicides responsibly, and it's also never too late to learn. So I'll catch you in the next one.